Happy Easter, guys.
We're really missing you. Are you missing us? Maybe not. Matthew 28, 11 to 15. This is just after Jesus' resurrection. While the women were on their way, some of the guards went into the city and reported to the chief priests everything that had happened. When the chief priests had met with the elders and devised a plan, they gave the soldiers a large sum of money, telling them, "You are to say, 'His disciples came during the night and stole him away while we were asleep.' If this report gets to the governor, we will satisfy him and keep you out of trouble." So the soldiers took the money and did as they were instructed. And this story has been widely circulated among the Jews to this very day.
Obviously, Easter is when Christians celebrate that Jesus rose from the dead. But if we're honest, most people today don't believe that Jesus actually did rise from the dead. And that's something we want to address in today's question. So how can we be confident that Jesus really did rise from the dead? Another way of thinking about that question is, how else could you explain the empty tomb? The tomb that Jesus was put in, that then was empty after he apparently rose from the dead. It's really interesting that the passage we just read from Matthew shows us right from the early days, just after Jesus' resurrection, there were people trying to explain away the empty tomb. Actually, it was the people who killed Jesus. The chief priests and the Romans spread this lie. They say, the reason the tomb's empty is because the disciples came and stole the body. Well, is it a good lie? Does it really explain away the resurrection very well? Could the disciples have stolen the body? The problem with it is that the disciples were nervous wrecks after Jesus had been killed. They've lost their leader, they're all terrified, they're there quivering in an upper room. And then something happens that changes them from that to really confident people who go out preaching that Jesus is alive, and they're willing to be arrested, beaten and killed preaching that. If the disciples had been the ones who stole the body, they would know that wasn't true, and surely they wouldn't be willing to go through all of that preaching that was the case.
Another explanation for the empty tomb is that perhaps Jesus hadn't really died. But there are three problems with this. The first being that the Romans are expert killers, and these guys were crucifying people a lot. So they knew when to recognise when someone was dead, and they even made sure by poking Jesus with a spear. The second is, if Jesus had been put in the tomb, and he'd just been taken off a cross, he was probably pretty severely wounded. I just don't see him being able to come out of the tomb, or making his way out of the tomb, overpowering these guards, and then being free. And the third is, there are a few reported sightings of him after his resurrection, but then he disappears. He's never seen again. So if he didn't really die, where did he go?
And I guess another possibility is that the body has ended up with some of Jesus' enemies. Maybe the Romans or the chief priests have the body. This isn't really a great suggestion. I mean, why did they spread the rumour that the disciples had it? But let's just run with it. Say, what if the chief priests or the Romans have the body? The problem there is once Christianity takes off, these are the people who really oppose it. And it takes off really quickly. It takes off after Pentecost, not long after. If they had Jesus' body, they could just produce it and literally collapse Christianity there and then. Say, no, he didn't rise from the dead. We have the body. So those are three different possibilities for how you can explain away the empty tomb. None of them really add up. Actually, with all those people Dave mentioned who saw Jesus after he'd risen from the dead, with those experts in killing who said he definitely was dead before that, I think we're left saying Jesus really did rise from the dead, and that's why Christians confidently celebrate Jesus rising from the dead every Easter.